With Ben McKee, Brent Hubbs, Volquest.com. As we go around the horn, Tennessee gets the win over Alabama 9-2 to make the series even at a game apiece. They'll play for the series tomorrow. These two teams back at it tomorrow afternoon. A game full of fireworks, full of drama, but a game also full of some injuries, Ben McKee. And the injury thing is more concerning than any drama or fireworks. We'll get to all of that. That's concerning as well. But certainly we start first with the injury news. Tennessee losing two pitchers to injury tonight. What's the latest?
Well, Chase Dollander, the first one that goes down, has to leave in the first inning. He looked great in the first inning, strikes out the first two batters. And then on the third batter, he takes a line drive off the elbow, off the arm. His pitching arm doesn't come back into the game. He's seen later in the dugout in a sling. And word is that he's gone back for an MRI, and there's some concern that it could be a fractured elbow. So we'll see what the final word on that is in the long term over the next 24 hours or so. But right now, it does not sound good in the meantime for him. And then with Sewell, he comes in, and an inning after Donder gets hit by a line drive, Sewell gets hit by a line drive, and Sewell was able to stay in the game, but he was hit on the heel to end that second inning. Sounds like he's dealing with a deep bone bruise, kind of like Jared Dickey has been dealing with the last couple of weeks. So a good sign that he was able to gut through that for a couple of innings, and he pitched well in doing so. But sounds like Jared Dickey, he'll have to manage the pain, and I would imagine that could cost him a week or so, just as he tries to deal with that bone bruise and get over the recovery of the bone bruise.
Well, lots of things for Tony Vitello and Frank Anderson to sort out before the next SEC weekend coming up at Florida next week. In the meantime, they've got to try to win this series at home against Alabama tomorrow. And Frank Anderson and Tony Vitello likely to be spectators in this game, not in the dugout, but somewhere else after both were thrown out in the first inning. What's the latest on kind of what their prognosis is on when they might return? And two, what can you give us in terms of details that led to the eruption that we saw from those two coaches tonight?
Well, Frank Anderson will definitely not be in attendance for tomorrow's game, or at least he won't be in attendance in the dugout. He will be suspended tomorrow just because he is an assistant coach. And when an assistant coach is ejected from a game, they automatically get a one-game suspension. So no Frank Anderson tomorrow, and I would not expect Tony Vitello either. Tennessee is still awaiting official word on what his suspension will look like, but it is expected after he bumped the third base umpire there in the first inning that he's going to get a couple game suspension. 3 and 5 games have been thrown out for Tony Vitello in terms of possible games that he could miss. But again, no official word yet, but that's the talk right now, that he could miss 3 to 5 games just as a result of making contact with the umpire. And you certainly understand some frustration. That umpire was not great last night. He's the same umpire that was on the crew in Omaha when Ross Kivett famously was ejected last year. I was told by somebody in the program that on Friday night, when he was behind the plate, there were 57 missed calls, balls, and strikes on the night, which is an outrageous number. He was bad when you were watching it. You could tell that he was not having a great night, and that obviously confirms that. So some emotions from Friday night leads over to Saturday, maybe a little frustration and wondering from Tennessee's side of things if Alabama is stealing some signs. And I think that was the source of the frustration for Frank Anderson and Tony Vitello in the first inning today. You saw Frank Anderson, if you were in attendance, chirping throughout the first inning. And then when Chase Dollander is hit by a line drive to end the inning, he came unglued, because that would be very, very unfortunate if Alabama is indeed stealing signs. And while they are stealing signs, they take a line drive off the elbow, or Chase Dollander does. That would be a really unfortunate series of events. So Frank Anderson comes out, argues. Tony Vitello follows him. Frank gets ejected first. Tony kept arguing. Tony eventually gets tossed, and as soon as he gets tossed, he immediately saw red, bumps the umpire. Unfortunately, lost his cool there, although you certainly may understand why. So it doesn't sound good on the Tony Vitello front in terms of potential games he could miss over the next week, which could lead into next weekend series against Florida.
Yeah, that could be significant as Tennessee hits the road next weekend to Florida. So we'll keep you updated on that as that news continues to trickle out in the coming hours and days. Of course, Tennessee back to action tomorrow afternoon. Another bizarre story before we get to the game. They played a game. Tennessee did win it. We'll talk about it in a second. But another unusual story is that same third base umpire, as you told me earlier, who threw Tony Vitello out of the game, sent word to the Tennessee dugout to he didn't want to see the fur coat anymore. Tennessee hits 3 home runs in this game. He wanted no part of the fur coat. What's the details there?
Yeah, not sure exactly what he is allowed to do in regards to a fur coat situation. I would imagine since he is the crew chief and he is the umpire, he's trying to keep things calm or whatnot. I would imagine that he is allowed to do what he did. And he just did not appreciate, I guess, Tennessee celebrating on the field after a couple of home runs with the fur coat. So he told Tennessee to take it back into the dugout. No more fur coat on the field. Tennessee continued to do the fur coat, but they did do it in the dugout. So I don't think that he was out of bounds by the rule book to ask Tennessee to do that, but certainly a first when you consider all of last year and Tennessee's actions after a home run this year with the fur cap or a fur coat and the daddy hat continuing for a second year. You haven't seen any umpires say anything, but tonight he did say something, and maybe it was because there was a lot of chippiness up to that point between Alabama and Tennessee. Maybe he's just trying to keep both sides cool, calm, and collected, make sure nothing else happens. And you certainly understand that if that is the case, but still odd to see a third base umpire after having a really rough night behind the plate on Friday have as big of an impact on a game the following day. So it'll be interesting to see if he has as big of an impact yet again on Sunday when he's behind second.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the game. Tennessee wins 9-2. What did you think of Tennessee's performance following up on their first conference loss of the year?
Yeah, really gutsy to bounce back. And Alabama's a really good baseball team. I would argue that they're the best team out that Tennessee has faced to this day. And Tennessee's getting all it can handle from Alabama. I thought Camden Sewell was really the difference maker, battling through injury, being forced into a situation that he did not foresee coming. And that's really tough for a pitcher when the starter goes down due to injury and you're thrown into the fire against a really good lineup. That's a really, really tough task, and he handled it well. Gave up the home run, but according to Josh Elander after the game, it was more of a better swing by Alabama's Zane Denton than a bad pitch by Camden Sewell. Josh Elander thought it was a pitch just in off the plate. That was a ball, and Zane Denton just put a good swing on it. And aside from that, he was terrific. And then you had some other guys come in and pitch really well. Mark McLaughlin, who you haven't really seen in the situation that he was in tonight, he pitched well. Kirby Connell came in and got some big timeouts. You had Redmond come in and do Redmond Walsh type things. And then yet again, Tennessee shows the power at the plate. Alabama native Jordan Beck hits 2 home runs against Alabama. Luke Lipshius hits a home run off of a lefty. And the fact that that's one of the last things we're mentioning speaks to the absurdness of Saturday night. So real good night at the plate for Tennessee. They were assisted by Alabama's catcher. It's weird. Tennessee has the catcher that's new to the position. Evan Russell guns out a guy at second, trying to get to second on a wild pitch in the dirt. But Alabama's catcher sails 3 throws into left field that allows 3 Tennessee runs to score. So Tennessee really good at the plate yet again, and just the unfortunate situation with Chase Dolander, Camden Sewell really picking up his team and battling through injury, and some of those other bullpen arms coming in and helping him out as well.
All right, last question I got for you. Tomorrow, is this one of those Sunday games where everybody's just trying to piecemeal it together with arms? What's the bullpen situation for these two teams? How imperative for Tennessee is it that Beam goes deep into this game like he has so far in conference play?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Both bullpens are depleted for different reasons. Alabama doesn't have as much depth in the bullpen as a Tennessee bullpen does, but Tennessee depleted because of some injuries this weekend, because of Chase Burns not being able to last very long on Friday night. But Tennessee still does have guys available that should be able to get the job done. Will Mabry should be able to come back and pitch. Ben Joyce has not pitched this weekend. Maybe Blake Tidwell is available yet again. Kirby Connell did not pitch a ton. Redmond Walsh has not thrown a ton. So there's not yes, you are dealing with some unforeseen circumstances day one and day two, but Tennessee's luxury this season has been the amount of arms that it has had. And now you have arguably the best pitcher in the SEC pitching for you starting the game, and you still have plenty of options behind him. So I would say that Tennessee is in a better spot when it comes to the bullpen and comes to arms available. But I'll say this: Alabama really good on Sunday. They have a really good record. I want to say they're 6-0 or 6-1 on getaway days, which is the final day of the series this season. They won a lot of games to end the series. So they'll be here. They'll be ready to play. Tennessee's won 2 games on Easter Sunday, and Easter Sunday will be at the back of the mind for Alabama. They'll be ready to play, and Tennessee will get all it can handle tomorrow. But it definitely needs Drew Bean to really have a big time outing.
Well, a wild night. Tennessee wins 9-2. Plenty of objections, but the biggest story right now is the injury status of Chase Dollander and what's going to happen with him moving forward. But Tennessee gets the win. They even the series for the weekend. They'll go for the series win against Alabama tomorrow afternoon. We'll have continuing coverage of everything that happened tonight and obviously coverage of the rubber match of this series on Sunday afternoon as well. For Ben McKee, I'm Brent Hubbs. It's been Around the Horn at Volquest.com.